familiar with the uncanny valley? If not, it's that feeling that you may experience when you see something that's humanoid, but something's not quite right. Like for example, when you see a robot or a wax figure. Now, there are many theories as to why we experience this phenomenon, but one that a lot of people like to go with is that somewhere along the way during evolution, we learned not to trust things that look very human that aren't exactly human. That honestly creeps me out so much, but I'm curious to know what your theories are. Here are some more underwater creatures that make me very uncomfortable. So starting off with sperm whales, they're pretty chill. They don't really freak me out, but have you seen how they sleep? Like, what in the Easter Island is going on here? You know that unspoken rule where when you sleep over at a friend's, you kind of just pretend to stay asleep until they wake up? I feel like at a sperm whale sleepover would just be so much more awkward. Hey, bro. Yo. Psst. Are you awake? This little dude is called the sarcastic fringe head. I guess they ran out of name ideas, I don't know. They're found in the Northeast Pacific Ocean between the depths of 3 and 75 meters. Now, these guys are very territorial, and although they've only been known to grow to about a foot in length, they can pack a punch. Just watch this. Been known to defend their home from anything, any living creature, including humans, so don't go stepping on this little demogorgon looking ass dude shit. So these phallic freaks of nature are a species of fish called blind gobies. Pretty self-explanatory, they're blind and usually live most of their lives under mud. Although these are their teeth and they are native to the coastlines of Southern California in the United States and Baja California in Mexico. Same as our sarcastic friend who we met earlier, so if you're in either of those areas, watch your toes. This case is extremely gruesome, disturbing, and graphic, so there's going to be a major content warning on this video. The jury deliberated for under an hour to find 25-year-old Taylor Shabiznis guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and third-degree SA. On February 22nd of 2022, Shabiznis took the life of 24-year-old Shad Therian in the basement of his mother's home in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The two had smoked methamphetamine together and then had a sexual encounter that involved Shabiznis choking Therian with a chain. This originally started as a form of foreplay, but then during her interrogation, Shabiznis admitted that she started to enjoy it and wanted to see what would happen if she continued. She said it took 3 to 5 minutes for Therian to stop breathing, but then she also claimed that she blacked out during this time. I'm not sure if this was some sort of defense for her behavior, but she also asked the detective if they knew what it was like to love something so much you kill it. The crime scene was actually discovered by Shad's mother, Tara Pokanich, when she heard her storm door slamming in the basement, went downstairs to investigate, and discovered Shad's head and private parts in a bucket. Upon arrival, authorities were also met with a bloody mattress. Shabiznis had mutilated and dismembered Shad with multiple kitchen knives, of which she said a bread knife was most effective due to its serrated blade. Shabiznis had what she referred to as played with Therian's body for hours post-mortem. She also said that police were going to have fun trying to find all of Shad's organs, as she had removed them one by one and scattered them all over the basement. And they did find body parts scattered all over the basement, including Shad's torso, with his foot shoved into his empty chest cavity. Shabiznis was found at a nearby apartment complex with what appeared to be blood all over her hands and clothes and scratches on her hands and arms. Shabiznis chose not to take the stand in her own defense, but she did decide that it would be appropriate to smirk and laugh throughout her trial thus far, including during Shad's mother's testimony. Keep in mind that this woman has a husband who loves her no matter what, and is also a mother to a 2-year-old boy who currently lives with his grandparents because both of his parents are incarcerated. Today is day 4 of the trial. They're in phase 2, where a jury will determine whether or not Shabiznis was suffering a mental illness or defect during the actions that she was convicted of. Now, there are many more details to this case, but I just want to say, if you're gonna go searching, do it at your own risk. Tomino's Hell was written in 1919 by Saijo Yaso and is alleged to curse and even sometimes kill those who read it aloud. And this curse is said to not be able to be undone. A lot of people believe that Saijo wrote this poem as a form of catharsis after World War I, where he lost either his sister or his father. Opinion differs on which. Japanese filmmaker Terayama Shuji directed the 1974 film To Die in the Country, which was based on Tomino's story. He died in 1983 of liver failure, and a lot of people blame this on the curse of the poem. There are many posts online of people claiming to have been cursed by Tomino's hell or posting that they were going to read it aloud, never to give an update again. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and here is the English version for those who are curious. Here are some more underwater creatures that make me very uncomfortable. This is a baby moray eel. Now, it's only made up of one thin layer of muscle tissue. You may be thinking, what's creepy about this? It's kind of cool. No. This is what they grow up to look like. I want nothing to do with that. The gulper eel, otherwise known as the pelican eel, can consume prey that's much larger than itself. They average about 2 to 3 feet in length. What's larger than 2 to 3 feet? Myself. Will I ever encounter this creature thousands of feet below the surface where they reside? No. Do they still freak me out? Absolutely. This is a Japanese spider crab. Their leg span can be up to 3.9 meters or 12 feet across, and they can weigh up to 44 pounds. I'm done. You're done. We're done here. Let's look at some underwater creatures that make me very uncomfortable. First up, we have the big fin squid. Now, the longest one of these recorded was 6.4 meters long. I'm sorry, but this guy, he's definitely friends with the kraken. Moving on. Goblin shark. I hate it. They have like these, I guess you could call them slingshot type jaws. I'm just gonna show you. They're known to be harmless to humans, but I still don't want that anywhere near me, thank you. This one's a phantom jellyfish, and it's actually kind of cool, but they can be found between the surface and about 22,000 feet deep. So imagine you like fall off a boat and get caught in this dude's curtain arms. I'm good on that. And finally, here's some eye bleach for you. This is a Dumbo octopus. Isn't he cute? Just look how shy he is. I love him. Did you know that at one point John Wayne Gacy worked as a Democratic precinct captain? And through this work met Rosalind Carter, the wife of the 39th President of the United States, Jimmy Carter? Yeah. Welcome to part 21 of random shit about serial killers that you may or may not find interesting. MacRae Edwards was responsible for the deaths of 6 children. He worked as a heavy equipment operator and helped build highways throughout California. He buried 2 of his victims that we know of in places where he knew that highways would be built over eventually. But not all of his victims' bodies have been found, so there still could be some under California's highways. Sometimes referred to as the British Jeffrey Dahmer due to their similar MO and victim preference, Dennis Nilsen killed at least 12 young boys and men. Himself, among fellow tenants, complained about a clogged drain in their building. The plumber who came to check it out found small bones and flesh clogging the drain, and Dennis said, "Oh, somebody must be flushing their Kentucky Fried Chicken." Well, no. They figured out that it was human remains because Dennis was getting rid of some of the remains by flushing them down his toilet, so he essentially ratted himself out. Here's some things that I know about the ocean that heavily influence me to stay on shore when I go to the beach. So you know when you see underwater photos and there are these like little white specks? Well, those are called marine snow, and what they are essentially just organic debris, aka chunks of rotting fish flesh falling to the ocean floor. So enjoy your next swim and keep your mouth closed. Riptides, bro. So if you don't know what riptides are, they're basically narrow currents of water caused by the tides that pull the water back in the opposite direction of the shore. Now, if you get caught in one and you're not calm and you panic, odds are it's going to pull you out into the ocean and you're just going to keep fighting it until you get exhausted to the point that you drown. According to the United States Life-Saving Association, these things kill over 100 people a year. And consider that that is just in the US. If I ever got caught in one of these, all that would be on my mind is that I was going to get dragged out to the depths of the ocean and get eaten by the kraken. So rockfish are these little fish that just chill at the bottom of the ocean floor. Can you see him on first glance in this photo? Exactly. They're very good at camouflaging themselves as harmless rocks. If you step on one, they'll shoot out these little dorsal spines out of their back that inject venom into your foot and can cause a lot of pain and infection. But hey, don't worry, there are a multitude of other fish within the same species, some of which their venom is deadly, and also they can be found all over the world. Isn't that awesome? Let's look at an SCP that does an excellent job at fueling my fear of ocean creatures. Should someone be provided a complete description, whether it's visualized, written, or spoken, of exactly what SCP-1128 looks like, it will manifest itself. Its general appearance is described as a massive aquatic predator. Those who learn this anomaly's exact description will become infected. Infections, in some cases, have resulted in a fear of submerging in water. Otherwise, victims don't behave strangely. If infected victims are fully submerged in water, no matter how deep, they will disappear. The majority of the time, they resurface expressing fear and panic. Other times, it's just their blood and partial remains that surface. Those who come out alive stated they were transported to the vast ocean and pursued by SCP-1128. This was proven in an experiment involving a disposable class test subject. Interviews with survivors are difficult given that infections are spread through accurate descriptions. Staff or anyone that aren't test subjects that are exposed to this description are to be given Class C amnestics to eliminate their memory of SCP-1128. Descriptions are to be kept by the Foundation for experimental purposes, and any information found outside of the Foundation is to be destroyed. Test subject D1732 was used in multiple testing procedures related to this anomaly. They were not given amnestics after these tests and were actually able to encounter SCP-1128 even without fully immersing their body in water. With time, their fear of water drastically intensified. On date redacted, days after initial exposure, D1732 was violently pulled into a glass of water by redacted. No remains were ever discovered and further testing was terminated. Welcome to interesting ocean facts that also creep me the fuck out. Starting off strong, named after the Greek god of the underworld, Hades, the deepest parts of the ocean are known as Hadal zones. I feel like that says enough in itself. It is possible for there to be up to 10 million viruses in just 1 milliliter of ocean water. That is more than the number of stars that are in the Milky Way. Now, while a lot of them aren't harmful to humans, just the idea of how vast the ocean's ecosystem is makes me cringe. Underwater visibility depends on the turbidity of the water, so like how cloudy it is. In clear water, the average person can see about 80 meters or around 260 feet ahead of them. What I'm getting from this is that I could be in the thick of the ocean and 100 meters away, there might be a giant, creepy, gross sea creature that I can't see, and I hate that. It's estimated that there are the remains of around 3 million shipwrecks on the ocean floor. AKA you could look at the ocean as a giant cemetery, AKA water ghosts, AKA it's gonna be a big fat fucking no from me. NASA was originally founded to explore the ocean, but they found something unknown that scared them so bad that they started investigating space to get us the fuck off this planet. That is a myth that just went mega viral on TikTok. But NASA does study our ocean to better understand water ecosystems on other planets and in turn understand ours better, which isn't really that scary, but honestly it's kind of scary if I think about it too much. But anyway, it's super cool nonetheless, and NASA was not created to explore the ocean. This woman and her boyfriend move into this old decrepit house, and he's in charge of all the construction while she's to remove the wallpaper. Now there was wallpaper everywhere, the ceilings, every single wall, and she was like, this job kinda sucks. But then she thought it's kinda satisfying, like when you get a nice long peel from a sunburn. She decided to make it a game of how long of a piece she could peel at once. Then she discovered something curious. Under each corner of each piece of wallpaper there was a date and a name. She Googles one of the names and it's that of a missing person. The dates match up and everything. Okay, weird. Next day she does some more digging and each name was that of a missing person and all the dates lined up with the day that the person went missing. Naturally, they contact the authorities and a few are sent over to investigate. They're checking things out and the girl's in the next room, but what she overhears confuses her. Human? What's human? So they approach her and ask, ma'am, where's the material that you've removed so far? It wasn't wallpaper. This photo, taken by NASA's Curiosity rover on Mars, was released recently and people are freaking out because it resembles a door. A lot of people are of course running with the idea of ancient aliens, or that aliens reside on Mars and NASA is just hiding this from the public. Some are suggesting that the doorway looks like it's leading to a descending staircase, or that there's even a figure visible in the corner. People are trolling conspiracy theorists or just making jokes like that's where they hid all the real birds. The best nightclubs on Mars have no sign. Which episode of The Twilight Zone was this from? But experts say that it's just a result of erosion and natural vertical fractures. British geologist Neil Hodgson says that it seems a large boulder has fallen out under its weight. There are a lot of geometric and or unnatural looking formations in rocks all over the world, but I think that people are just freaking out because this is on Mars. And obviously jumping to the conclusion of aliens. Now the close-up picture is a little bit deceiving and it looks like it's a full doorway, but it's actually less than 3 feet tall. So I'm not about to rule out cute little tiny aliens, but let me know what you think. The Hoya Baciu Forest is located in Transylvania and is considered an enigma by many. You may have even seen photos of it before, as it's home to these weird shaped trees. It got its nickname the Bermuda Triangle of Romania because a shepherd reported that he lost his whole flock of 200 sheep within the woods. But these woods are also home to many other mysteries. Upon entering, a lot of people said that they felt watched or unwelcome and even claimed sudden physical ailments like nausea, vomiting, anxiety, and in some cases just random burns appearing on their skin. There are accounts of technological malfunction, and even more bizarre, geometric-like objects have been said to appear anywhere between the forest floor to the sky above, kind of like UFOs. Photos taken upon development showed like weird apparitions and orbs that the people couldn't see off camera, and in some cases what looked to be disembodied faces. It's speculated by many parapsychologists that this place is an interdimensional portal where spirits can materialize. It's a paranormal hotspot and is also one of the most haunted forests in the world. There are what seems to be endless accounts of strange phenomena occurring in Hoya Baciu, and that puts it on my bucket list of places to go, but I'm curious to know what you think. You know that since 2017 there have been 132 grain entrapment related deaths? Like as in people getting stuck after accidentally submerging themselves in grain. Terrifying. Welcome to random facts that you may or may not care to know. You've been warned. On average, approximately 30 insect fragments as well as 1 or more rodent hairs are allowed in 100 grams of peanut butter by the FDA. There are morgues on cruise ships, and yeah, that makes perfect sense, but I hadn't even thought about it until I read about it. And maybe you hadn't either, but now you have. I guess this is more food for thought, but today is the oldest you've ever been and the youngest you'll ever be. Fuck it, man. Eat the peanut butter anyway. And finally, just a little palate cleanser. Mr. Rogers' mom actually knit all of his sweaters for him. As of April 22nd, John Richardson is facing the charges of 3 first-degree murders, among other charges. Michael Hemphill was found on January 25th with a gunshot wound and would die in the hospital on February 1st. Mark Anthony Gilbert Jr. was found nearly beaten to death on March 10th and would actually die later that day. Charges unrelated to the murders would grant police a search warrant, and in Richardson's house they found 2 handguns, ammunition, knives, and a hatchet. A few days later, Jonathan Murphy would be arrested in the connection to Michael Hemphill's murder, the first victim, and allegedly texts between Murphy and Richardson linked Richardson to the murder. After having been missing since March 25th, the dismembered body of James Goolsbee was found in the Mayo River on April 13th. The authorities haven't released an official potential motive for Richardson, but a lot of people online are speculating that his crimes were racially motivated. Authorities are also exploring the possibility that Richardson is a serial killer and is actually linked to several other homicides. Should you have any information that you think may be useful, you can call this number here. The longest squid that's ever been discovered was a giant squid that was 13 meters long. To put that into perspective, that's longer, even a little bit more, than the height of 4 NBA hoops. But the existence of the Kraken is unrealistic. Right. This one's for those of you with thalassophobia. So at 20,000 kilometers approximately, the Pacific Ocean's longest stretch is 5 times the diameter of the moon. Imagine just getting plopped in the middle of that. My worst nightmare. Also, the Antarctic ice sheet, only one of 2 that remain on Earth, is approximately 14 million square kilometers. It's terrifying how massive that is, but also more unsettling, we're the reason that it's shrinking. Okay, so there's a spot in the Pacific Ocean east of Hawaii where a shit ton of sharks gather annually, and it's called the White Shark Cafe. It's actually the largest migration of animals on Earth. You're probably thinking, okay, why is that scary? Well, I'll tell you what, they're plotting. Now, I don't know what they're plotting, but I know that this guy's got something to do with it. Kiss my ass. Infamous last words of killer clown John Wayne Gacy, who killed at least 33 young men and boys. What a guy. Let's look at some other things that serial killers have had to say. H.H. Holmes, who quite literally had what was basically a murder castle, confessed to 27 murders in the 1800s, but the number's thought to be like in the hundreds. So one day, H.H. Holmes just casually said, "I was born with the devil in me. I could not help the fact that I was a murderer, no more than the poet can help the inspiration to sing. I was born with the evil one standing as my sponsor beside the bed where I was ushered into the world, and he has been with me since." I mean, like, I guess he was pretty self-aware. Richard Ramirez, aka the Night Stalker, was convicted of 13 murders. He once said, "I killed 20 people, man. I love all that blood." I hate this man. Dennis Rader, aka BTK, aka one of America's most notorious, was convicted of all 10 of his murders and was given 10 life sentences in 2005. Now, I find this pretty interesting because it's similar to what H.H. Holmes had to say. So, when this monster entered my brain, I will never know, but it is here to stay. How does one cure himself? I can't stop it. The monster goes on and hurts me as well as society. Maybe you can stop him. I can't. One night, a young woman was drifting off to sleep in her one-bedroom apartment, but she couldn't quite fall asleep because there was a dripping sound coming from the other room. So she rolls out of bed, she goes to the kitchen, checks the faucet, it's not leaking, she thinks, okay, and she stumbles back to her room. She slumps back onto her bed, hangs her arm off the edge, and is comforted when her dog gives her hand a gentle lick, just reminding her that she's safe. She's trying to fall back asleep again, and she hears drip, drip, drip. And she's like, ugh. I don't feel like getting up, but her dog licks her hand again and reassures her. Again, drip, drip, drip. Now she's frustrated, so she says, okay, I'll get up and go check the bathroom faucets. She shuffles to the bathroom, flicks on the light, rubbing her eyes, and she checks the sink. Nothing. So she turns around, to check the tub, and she's met with a horrific sight. Her poor dog was hanging from the shower head, its blood leaking into the tub. Drip, drip, drip. And then written on the wall, it reads, "Humans can lick too." Vincent van Gogh is regarded as one of the most famous post-impressionist painters, if not of all time. Even if you're not interested in art, you've probably heard his name. But this recognition actually only came after his death, and he really lived a harrowing life. He suffered from alcoholism, epilepsy, syphilis, mental illness. I'm sure that you've heard the story of him cutting off his own ear and giving it to a sex worker. So due to this mental illness, when Vincent turned up one day with a gunshot wound to the torso claiming, "I have tried to kill myself," it was widely accepted and is still accepted that he did in fact try to kill himself. But a theory proposed by these two writers here claims otherwise. In May of 1890, Van Gogh moved to a peaceful Paris suburb to find solace and nurture his mental health. There he would actually find himself creating a painting each day for 70 consecutive days. He fits the classic sort of stereotype of the tortured artist who finds catharsis in their work. And now finally, things were looking up for Van Gogh. So one summer day, he decided to go get himself some new supplies, and then the next day, on July 27th of 1890, he would go to a nearby wheat field to take advantage of his newfound inspiration. All of this only to later return to the inn that day with a self-inflicted bullet wound that would ultimately take his life 20 painful hours later. So the two writers that I mentioned previously see a few discrepancies within this. While Van Gogh's brother Theo would later claim that his brother was lonely and did talk about self-harm, Van Gogh seemed to have found some new sort of peace and his creativity was at its peak. He had also just purchased fresh supplies the day before, so they thought that that was kind of weird as well. They also pointed out that shooting yourself in the abdomen is sort of an unusual, uncommon way to take your own life. So for that reason, they thought that maybe this was done by a bully of Van Gogh's. It was this kid and his friends who they would walk around with a revolver and they would pick on vulnerable people. The bully would make fun of Van Gogh behind his back, but then he would be nice to his face and he would pull sort of pranks on him, like he would ruin his paintings or throw out his supplies, and one time even put a snake in his paint box. So these writers proposed that during a routine session of these bullies picking on Van Gogh, things went a little too far and they committed manslaughter. But this main bully had an alibi and the gun was also left at the scene, which would just be kind of a silly thing to do. Finally, they point out that there were no witnesses. The only known considerable witness was the 13-year-old daughter of the innkeeper who Van Gogh approached and said, I just tried to kill myself. They're suspicious of her because she would change her testimony a few times throughout the investigation, and she kind of went back and forth oh, he said that, oh, maybe he didn't say that, whatever. But she was 13 and probably traumatized. Personally, I think that Van Gogh probably had some sort of break and did take his own life, but it is interesting to theorize about, and I'd love to know what you think.
What if you went missing and had no idea what happened to you? This is the disappearance and bizarre reappearance of Stephen Kubacki. Stephen Kubacki was a student at Hope College who went missing just a few days into his cross-country skiing trip near Saugatuck, Michigan in February of 1978. Upon a search for Stephen, authorities discovered approximately 180 meters of footprints in the snow. When they realized that the prints stopped at the edge of Lake Michigan, it was concluded that Stephen must have fallen into the lake, been trapped under the ice, and drowned. Later that same month, some snowboarders found Stephen's abandoned skis and backpack in the area where he went missing. Then, over a year later, on May 5th of 1979, something unbelievable happened. Stephen woke up in the grass of Pittsfield, Massachusetts, over 700 miles from where he originally went missing. He had absolutely no memory of the previous 15 months and reported wearing unfamiliar clothing and a backpack containing multiple maps, suggesting a lot of travel. He also claimed to have felt like he had done a lot of running and even found a t-shirt in his backpack from a Wisconsin marathon that he cannot explain. Theories about what happened to Stephen range from extreme amnesia to alien abduction to the idea that he may have traveled to another dimension for those 15 months. I think it is of note that a lot of people have gone missing in strange and mysterious ways within the Lake Michigan Triangle that Stephen supposedly fell into. This woman solved the case of her own murder from beyond the grave. Teresita Basa, born in 1929, moved from the Philippines to Chicago, Illinois to study music and worked as a respiratory therapist. On February 21st of 1977, Teresita shared a phone call with a friend where she mentioned that she was expecting a guest, though she didn't mention who the guest was or why he would be stopping by. About an hour later, neighbors called the fire department to Teresita's apartment with complaints about the smell of smoke within the vicinity. They arrived at a horrific scene. Teresita was discovered under a flaming mattress, unclothed, with a knife through her chest. There were originally no leads in the investigation. Teresita was very admired by everyone around her, so nobody could possibly understand who would do this, or why. It was until 6 months later when Dr. Jose Chua, a co-worker of Teresita, his wife Remy began experiencing a very strange phenomenon. One night, the couple was lying in bed, and Remy went into a trance-like state during which she muttered, "Doctor, I would like to ask you for help. The man who murdered me is still at large. I am Teresita Basa." Jose and Remy believed the spirit of Teresita was possessing Remy to give them information about her murder. The couple were hesitant to go to the police out of fear that nobody would believe them, but after multiple more visits from Teresita, the straw that broke the camel's back was when she revealed her killer's name. She claimed the man who took her life was Alan Showery, who was also a co-worker. She said that the friend who came over the night of her murder came by to fix her TV, but he stole her late mother's jewelry and her life instead. Being their only lead, when the Chuas made a report about their experience, the police decided to follow it up. They went to Alan Showery's residence, and sure enough, his girlfriend was in possession of Teresita's stolen jewelry. During questioning, Alan said that he did stop by to fix Teresita's TV. He was struggling financially and she was paying him for odd jobs, but he didn't have the proper tools, so instead he robbed and murdered her. With evidence stacked against him, Alan confessed and was sentenced to just 14 years in 1979. Not only that, he was released from prison after 4 years. Do you think any justice that Teresita's alleged ghost was fighting for was even served? What are your thoughts on this case?